It's interesting that you bring that one up because that is arguably top three, if not top two, worst dates that I had been on. It's really important to have strong mental health because dating is not for the weak. She brought her parents to the first date with her.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Hustle Network podcast in partnership with Meta Prosper. This is the Creators Podcast, and we have a very special guest with us today. His name is Zakir Siddiqui, a self-proclaimed black belt in first dates. Zakir Siddiqui, also known as Zockr, is a comedy-forward creator who rose to popularity after sharing detailed accounts of his tumultuous dating experiences. What started as an outlet for storytelling while his friends were occupied with their day-to-day lives became a fast path to growth for Zockr, with more than 900,000 followers tuning into his often serialized narratives. While Zockr is in pursuit of a path to delete his dating apps, his expanding digital audience awaits his next experience, or at the very least, a second date. Zockr, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're very excited to learn about your growth as a content creator. So I'd love to jump right into it. Can you talk about, first of all, can you talk a little bit about your content and what you share online as a content creator?
Absolutely. I share a lot of navigating the modern dating landscape in 2024 and as early as 2022, which was when I started documenting my dating life. I It all really started when, well, actually, let's go a little bit further back. I am an oversharer. If something I'm excited about or something happens in my dating life, I want to tell my friends, I want to tell everyone, I want to seek advice. And so there was a moment a couple of years ago, around this time actually, where I went on a bad date. It was late at night. I wanted to tell my friends about it. They were either asleep or busy. Posted the video that night and then woke up the next morning and realized that a lot more people are interested in my dating li life than I thought. So I figured I'd take the opportunity to continue documenting my dating life, and here we are today.
Oh my goodness. I love that. I often kind of feel the same way where like if I do have a bad day, I'm like, who can I tell this to? But it's like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I don't know who to tell it to. But I love that you shared it online because I feel like a lot of people can resonate and live through your experiences. Maybe feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who has had a bad date, right? But obviously you quickly grew an audience, right? And I think that one of my favorite stories that you've shared has got to be the one where your date ordered 53 fried pickles and left you with a bill. So I did get a chance to kind of rewatch some of your old reels, and that one was hilarious. And it kind of makes us think like, oh my goodness, okay, maybe my dates are not as bad as those. What has been one of your craziest or favorite dating stories that you've been able to share online?
It's interesting that you bring that one up because that is arguably top three, if not top two, worst dates that I had been on, considering the fact that 53 fried pickles is such a specific amount of pickles to order on a first date. There has been my dating life has been a roller coaster, lots of ups, lots of downs. I think that for me, a notable dating experience I went on a first date with a lady, and she brought her parents to the first date with her, completely blindsided me. I had no idea, no expectation. Fortunately, I grew up in an Indian household, and I've had experience with talking to Indian parents before, aunts and uncles and cousins and whatnot. So being interrogated, are you a doctor? Are you a lawyer? Are you an engineer? Come to find out that I am none of the three was almost a blessing in disguise to find out that my date's parents thought I didn't live up to expectations when I said I wasn't either of those three. So it was almost like a sweet escape. Um, but dating is an interesting thing. I think it's hard to control what would say or do on a first date, and I just try my best to just live in the moment, live in the present, and get to know wonderful people along the way. So
Amazing. Yeah, I did get a chance to. watched that one as well. That was the Priyanka story.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that is just really insane. And then it makes you kind of like think back and realize like, wow, these dating stories are actually real. Kind of like when I watch your videos, I'm like, is this real? Like, is this really happening? But I love the way that you story tell, and I love how you share your experiences, and it really resonates with your audience and really allows your audience to connect with you. And you've been able to grow a massive following, right? And I think that a lot of men and women comment on your videos, and I see that you often get comments saying like, "Oh, where are you located, Zockr? I'd love to take you out on a date myself." I'm just curious, like, do you ever go on dates with your followers, or like has the thought ever kind of come across your mind?
Yes, in short, yes, I have been on a date with somebody that has reached out through social media, and I think that with the unexpected kind of growth of my social media career path, I feel as though all of this was kind of unintended. Like it was mainly served as a purpose for me to document my dating life, and I think that people that connect to it in some shape or form have reached out, and I've met some wonderful people from social media who have either related to dating today or just think it's funny or whatever the case. And so if it were up to me, I would want to, go on a date with all the responses, but trying to keep up with that kind of stuff. So no, but yeah, I'm just very, very grateful that there's a community and sense of belonging within dating, and I try my best to stay hopeful not only for myself but also to empower my audience that the dating pool can be scary, but not as scary as it's all in your head. So
Yeah, and yeah, I think that we're also kind of consumed with like our day-to-day lives working, right? But like dating and love is a big part of our lives as well. And I love that you're sharing bits and pieces of it from your life. And I'd love to kind of jump into the question of like, do you often have dates who feel a bit hesitant knowing that you share your dating life on social media, right? And I think this goes for a lot of creators who share a lot of their personal life on social media. And when they get into relationships, maybe their significant other may feel like, oh, you might be sharing a lot of your life online. I don't know if this is something that I'm ready for, right? And if you have come across dates like that, how do you navigate those conversations with them?
that is an answer I'm trying to find an answer to still to this day, to be quite honest with you, because there are a percentage of people who are willing to have the conversation, but a majority of the percentage who prefer to not have that conversation. And that's okay. I think it's a sign if nobody wants, if someone doesn't want to have a conversation about it, it's not meant to be. But I think that for me, I definitely am very communicative of and transparent when it comes to saying that I post about my dating life on the internet, but I also don't say it in almost like a pejorative way where it's like you're gonna be in the next video just to like surprise or scare them. I would never do anything like that, but it's more of my perspective on how I think the date went rather than people on the receiving end are seeing that content thinking, oh, he's just going to talk about me. I want to preserve that between myself and the person I'm going on a date with, which I completely understand. But I think I've always been true about me showcasing my perspective of how I think modern dating is. And I think it's good therapy for me also as well to just kind of let my feelings out there and just be wear my heart on my sleeve and try to be the best version of myself when I'm out there in the dating world.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate how that you're, being respectful to your dates and not being like, okay, I'm gonna be talking about you in my next video. But I think a lot of people who are content creators who do, start relationships, the person that they're getting into relationship with also has to be kind of like understanding that this is what they do as their hobby or their job, right? And kind of setting those boundaries kind of getting an understanding of like, okay, what is too much to share and what can I share,
Mhm.
is really important to have that conversation first and foremost. But I kind of like to want to switch the conversation a little bit to talk about, the fact that this podcast is in partnership with MetaProsper. And
Mhm.
it's been amazing to see that you've experienced immense growth on Meta platforms. Meta's apps is a social platform, right, where creators can connect with their community and build relationships with their audience to create a more meaningful way to connect with audience through their content, right? And I think that's why so many people resonate with your content because you share parts of your dating life so authentically. And sometimes we all have our crazy dates ourselves. How has Meta platforms enabled you to connect more deeply with your audience and your community?
I think primarily, especially as more recently, the use of meta platforms has skyrocketed the exposure of my content that I've put out there and showcased, and I've reached communities that I didn't think I would reach on other platforms, which I think is such a beautiful thing. And seeing um, diverse uh, groups and communities reaching out and saying, "Hey, I like the way you did this," or fly over here and we can go on a date, even things like that. I think that I've always been very intentional when it comes to content and posting about my dating life, and the fact that meta platforms have allowed me to continue to grow not only as a creator, but also as a human being and understand different tools, um, and learning how to kind of market myself and put myself out there even more to at a higher chance at potentially finding love. So
I love that. And I think also a big part of dating is seeing how you connect with someone culturally. And I think you touched upon this a little bit. I love that in many of your reels, you share and educate your audience about Indian culture in many ways, right? And you even say certain words with an accent in a comedic way. Has creating content enabled you to also connect more deeply with your AAPI community as well?
in some sense, yes. Truthfully, I think that even like in videos, I feel like in real life, that is almost like a habit that is so regular that occasionally there will be a few words I kind of burst into an Indian accent just for a comedic effect, but it seemed to have stick as far as the reception of my audience. So I think yeah, that's been definitely pivotal and as far as the storytelling aspect of posting. Um, but like you said, yes, I do feel like the connection to my roots and having grown up in an Indian household. My dad's from India, my mom's from England, so a little bit of balance of both. So,
I love that. I want to kind of do a little bit of a flashback and rewind a little bit. And I say this because I was looking at your old posts and your old YouTubes and just like your old reels and stuff like that. And you actually started your content creation journey a little bit differently, sharing bits and pieces of your life as a musician.
mm,
And that was a big part of your life. And I didn't know that until I, just kind of scrolled down all the way to the bottom. When did your content start moving towards your dating experiences? And did you ever expect your content to change? Did you ever expect your platform to grow so big based on the content that you're creating right now?
that's a great question. I wasn't expecting you to tap into that, but I'm going to give you a good answer for that. I give you props. So, my earliest starts to social media was in my late teens, I would say 19, 20 is when I started actively posting about music and writing songs and uploading that and trying to share it with the world. And that was kind of my bread and butter. I'm like, music is gonna be like, I'm gonna make it, it's all that. And then kind of got caught up with college and then got into a long-term relationship. That long-term relationship taught me that maybe there's bigger things than music. And there are responsibilities and there are bills and there are all these things to take into account in life and adulting. So since exiting that relationship, my brain is like, okay, what is music anymore? And so periodically I will pick up a guitar or I'll just noodle around and kind of still have that as a passion. but I think my priority interest lies in making people laugh, making people smile, and sharing things about me online. And I think navigating the dating landscape today has been a lot more comfortable to share with my audience, and I'm very fortunate that so many people have related to the struggles that come with the dating landscape today. So, yeah, I enjoy until I find the one, then that is definitely my priority. So social media has for sure helped with that, especially meta platforms, including Instagram and whatnot. So
Yeah, incredible. I think just hearing that you used to kind of create content, talking about yourself as a musician, talking about the shows that you used to go to. I love that you had this kind of epiphany or like just change and growth in your journey and realize that, okay, maybe there's more to me than music. Like you love music, right? But then you kind of talking about your dating experience, we really get to know who you are personally, Zakir, and like the thoughts that you have in your head and how you kind of portray them and how you kind of like represent them and communicate with your audience through your thoughts and your words and your feelings. So it's just interesting to see, that transition and to see your growth through the content that you create today.
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And going back to the meta discussion, I think a lot of creators see really promising results on meta platforms as more people are watching and creating and connecting through meta products such as Reels and broadcast channels, threads, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is a question I want to ask because I think a lot of people who are trying to become content creators are curious about, right? And a lot of people who do want to become content creators, they want to do it because a lot of people become successful as a creator, right? And I think that's the biggest question is like, how do I become a sustainable creator and how do I monetize off of my content? And so going into my next question, I do want to ask about like how have you been able to monetize your content and how do you ensure that you continuously grow as a content creator and practice creator sustainability, make sure that your content is resonating with your audience continuously?
Absolutely. To answer the first part of your question, I hadn't realized that monetization was a thing on social media, so I learned that very quickly. But I think the root of it is authenticity and consistency is one thing that I can say because I think when people really deep down feel like the message that you're trying to portray or the life that you want to share online, whatever the case it may be, if people feel a sense of genuine and authenticity, they will feel a lot more connected to it. And I think that dating for me, the way that it has panned out, I'm beyond fortunate, but I think that dating is something that everyone can relate to. Hopefully everyone has a heart or feels emotion. And I think that regardless of an outcome of how a first date goes, whether it's good or bad, I think that that sparks up a conversation, which I feel like has worked in my favor on meta platforms. So I think that continuing the conversation and just sharing minor updates of like this going on a first date, going on a second date. All right, she canceled. Well, now what? And kind of seeking to my audience for advice, I feel like also kind of helps with engagement and increases analytics of all sorts of exposure. And so it has definitely there have been many factors that have contributed to the success of where I am today, and I'm yeah, forever grateful.
Yeah, I love that. The authenticity, the transparency, and you kind of just like you said something that was very accurate that I think was very, very correct. It's like we're surrounded by love, right? And I think that like I said, like we talk about work and we talk about career all the time, but then at the end of the day, the most important thing is like health, love, and the people around us, right? And I think that's why a lot of people resonate with your content because not a lot of us are comfortable talking about our dating life and our dating experiences online. And it's great to see, it's refreshing to see other people talk about it because how can I, find content that I can connect with. And maybe I'm going through something that if I see something about it online or someone else is going through the same situation, it helps me kind of navigate those situations and navigate those feelings. Um, you talked about, like a date possibly canceling or like dates that have canceled last minute, right? And I've watched some of the reels where you did have a date who ended up canceling at the last minute. How do you not get discouraged and continue to stay positive in potentially finding the love of your life? Because I think there was a time where you did take a little bit of a break, right?
Mhm.
Um, and going on so many dates, it does become discouraging sometimes. I think a lot of people feel that same way with like dating apps. It just becomes really exhausting. How do you stay positive and like do you take breaks every now and then if you feel like you need to take a break?
Absolutely. I think it's extremely important because any aspect of dating can be mentally, physically, emotionally draining, whether it's going on dates or even not going on dates and being on dating apps and having to deal some people. I'm like, oh, she responded 3 days later after I sent the message. I'm gonna respond 3 days later after the message. Take that. It just I'm over kind of like the mind games and I'm very directive with what I want. Last year, I feel like I was definitely a serial dater where every other day I was very hopeful at finding love and wanted to get to know people. But I think that when I prioritize expectations and communicate that, sometimes that works in my favor or works against me, where I feel like depending on the person that I meet, they're either, yeah, very communicative of that they're looking for something long term, or on the flip side, someone's just looking to take it day by day. Some people are just kind of one step at a time. So I think that with this year and maybe even across the past 5 or 6 months, I've been a lot more patient when it comes to dating because I think that good things will come in time. And so I've decided to take little breaks here and there, but not particularly announcing them on social media. I think it's normal to take whatever time you need. If you feel like broadcasting that, amazing, but it's really important to take breaks, even just call it an early night, get some extra sleep, throw on a show, and then yeah, it definitely it's really important to have strong mental health because dating is not for the weak.
Content creation on the side, but you also have a full-time job.
Mhm.
How do you manage your time having a full-time job and content creation on the side? Because you're pretty consistent with creating content and it can be a lot juggling both. So how do you kind of manage your time doing both?
I don't. I am the worst at organizing and my life is a mess. No, I think that for me, I that's a great question. I never like when it comes to dating, it's not something that's scheduled or it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go on a date to like get content out of it. No, that's I always prioritize connection, and I think that's been at the forefront for me. And I think balancing that with working 9 to 5 almost makes me feel a little bit whole because even if I get canceled on or stood up or whatever the case, and it's like, all right, cool, got work in the morning. I can focus my energy on that and vice versa. If work is pretty stressful, then I can de-stress by, sharing that with my date that I go on or using that as conversation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love how honest you were in the beginning. I think a lot of content creators or entrepreneurs
Mhm.
go through the same thing. They're like, time management is such an important, trait to have, but a lot of us are just struggling with managing time. But I love that, you mentioned that you're just kind of sharing yourself authentically, and it's like a way for you to journal or like connect with your audience in many ways. So I'd love to, I think we're kind of winding down now, and just a few more questions that I do want to ask. I think most importantly, as a creator, we're we're kind of just in this creator economy where there's a lot of different challenges and, competition or I don't know, just like the everyday challenges of growing sustainably as a content creator. What has been some of your biggest challenges as a creator, and how do you overcome them?
I think some of the challenges as a creator early on when I started creating and posting online, I think probably when I was maybe around 50,000-ish followers, I started comparing myself to other creators and seeing what kind of opportunities that they were being provided versus me. I'm like, could there be external reasons as to why that's not happening my way, or could it be? But I think I've been very fortunate with the community that I've established over the past 2 years that I've been posting online. And I think that means more than a brand deal that has X amount of monetary value. I think really it comes down to creating a safe space for people to feel heard, connected, and somebody that they can reach out to if they're also struggling in the dating world. But early on, and as a creator, I'm like, how come I'm not getting this sponsorship? I talk about this, this, and this, and then yeah, it was too focused on the monetary value. And when I stopped thinking about that, it did so much better for my mental health, for me as a creator, and it was a fun thing to let go.
Yeah, I think we get too kind of overwhelmed by the numbers, right? And we see so many other creators gaining millions of views or hundreds of thousands of views and likes and comments, right? And, although that is great, but you get so much more than just the numbers, right? You gain a community and you build connections with the people who watch your content and you learn about their stories as well that may possibly help you. So I love that you were able to kind of seek a different way to view your content and to produce your content. And I think that we can all learn something from that as content creators, right? So I think just by like watching your content and watching your reels, I think we can all say that you are a hopeless romantic, Zakir. What are some
Thank
of
you. I'll
I
wear
think
that
it's
on my
true.
sleeve.
I think it's safe to say that. What are some of your best dating tips that you can share with the audience?
Best dating tips. One, have your pictures be up to date. Two, this is
You
coming from prior experience
you
as
mentioned that
someone.
on a number of reels. You're like, oh, she looked like her pictures, or she didn't look like her pictures.
Definitely. I would suggest it sounds so cliche saying this, but I think being yourself, literally being yourself, not conforming or responding to a question on a date just to answer it so that they can like you back. I would just say be authentic. If you don't like fried pickles, tell your date you don't like fried pickles. I think it's important to also communicate whether you're able to go on a date, whether it's not working out. I think communication for me is something that I hold of high importance when it comes to meeting somebody. Um, don't be a ghoster. We've all been there, but be a communicator. But yeah, I would say that off the top of my head.
Absolutely agree. I think those are all great ta tips, especially the last one. And I think the ghosting thing was so common when we were young, right? But now, as grown adults, we learn so much about how to be a good communicator that there is no excuse to just ghost, right? And I think that really is the foundation of having not only a good relationship, but a good friendship and a good connection as well. So
Absolutely.
I have one last question for you, Zakir, and that is, what advice do you have for someone who is just getting started in content creation, wanting to share parts of their life, but are maybe feeling a bit hesitant or just don't know how to get started?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing is finding your niche, finding what you're passionate about, whether it's posting about your dating life, posting about your favorite sports team. I think that consistency and passion will make your content shine through. And the authenticity is also important, whether it's content that has you involved in the video, whether it's highlights of sports. I think consistency and giving people a reason to tune in and connect to you for you will be the reason that your content will shine through. And I think I prioritize being genuine and just navigating the dating world. I feel like I've said that 17 times in the past 45 minutes, but I think that yes, consistency. Try to stick to a schedule of posting. Figure out what time your audience is highly tuned in or on their phones, because I think they're on Instagram there are analytics that'll show when your follower base is most active on their phones. Lean into your analytics and definitely integrate any feedback that you have from comments that you have trust in. So
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, just being yourself. I love that advice just because like you can see what other people are creating, but then you make your content unique just by being yourself because no one else can be you and no one else can create the same exact content as you do. So I think that's a very, very important piece. So thank you so much for sharing that, Zakir. So that is the end of the podcast. I would love to have you share with the audience where people can find more about you and where they can find your content online.
absolutely. So you can find me on all meta platforms on Instagram. So it's just at Zockr, Zockr. I think Instagram is Zokkr. And or you just type in Indian dating guy and something should come up.
Yes, I think I've done that last time as well, and you did come up. Well,
Amazing.
thank you so much, Zakir. It was amazing having you on the show today. Wanted to thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your story with us.
Thanks again for having me.